Online bir katılımcımız olacak. Şimdi ben perdeyi yavaş yavaş arkadaşlarımın aşağı indirmesini rica ediyorum. Bugün birçok kere bahsettik GSC Impact'ten, GSC üyeliğimizden ve küresel anlamda etki yatırımına yön veren kuruluşların içerisinde bulunduklarından. Küresel etkiyi yönlendirmek başlığı altında GSC Impact'in baş strateji sorumlusu Alasdair Maclay ile bir 10 dakikalık bir sohbetimiz olacak. Tüm şehvetiyle şu anda perdemiz aşağı indi. Hi, hello. So you can hear me, but I think I cannot hear you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Alasdair. How are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. It's a terrific honor to be here. I hope you're having a very productive session and meeting so far.
Yes, actually it was. We have a wonderful audience here, and we have been talking about the digital innovation, the green finance, and too many other things in the center of impact, of course. And now we need a global perspective from your side. First, I would like to thank you for your time and participation. And if it is okay for you, we can immediately start with the first question. Would that be okay for you?
That's absolutely fine. I look forward to engaging. And if there are any other questions from the floor, please bring them to my attention. It's great to be here, great honor. So over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the first question is about GSC Impact and how does GSC Impact envision the growth of impact investing in emerging markets like Turkey over the next decade, and what role do local stakeholders play in this process?
Thank you. So we had the great pleasure of being in Turkey just a year or so ago for our global leadership meeting. And I cannot speak as an expert on Turkey, but clearly you as people, as leaders, impact leaders are driving forward impact investment, impact in Turkey. But let me reflect maybe on how we see at GSG Impact the rest of the world and the trends we're seeing. So firstly, we are very positive on the growth of impact investment. We're very positive on all the innovation, the new finance methods, the impact transparency work that is leading more investors to commit to impact. So first point, we are very, very positive overall. The second point, though, specific to emerging markets, is this has been a very challenging 15 years now for emerging markets. So my background before GSG Impact, I was an emerging markets private equity investor for a company called Actis, where we do energy infrastructure and other private equity investing in emerging markets. And when I was there from 2003 to 2008, of course, it was a much more positive experience for emerging market investing. But more recently, we've seen significant outflows and very poor performance from emerging market investments, not just impact investing, but all investments in emerging markets, including in Asia, as well as Africa and Latin America. And so this has a consequence. So my second point is we believe in impact investing, but it's a very difficult sell at the moment to international investors and to all investors to invest in what they call emerging market risk. And for many of them, that includes their impact strategies. So I think it's still very difficult, and we continue to find investors retreating to more boring conventional markets, such as the USA or Europe or elsewhere. I know Turkey is in Europe, but I'm talking here a sort of European Union, Europe mainstream on the West. So number one, we're positive on impact investment, all the innovation. Number two, we're very worried still about capital flows to emerging markets. The third point I'd make, though, is impact investing is not all about international investment flows. It's increasingly important that domestic capital is harnessed for impact investment, particularly in emerging markets, amidst the headwinds of international emerging market sentiment. And so one of the tools and mechanisms we're seeing deployed successfully in a GSG Impact is putting together vehicles and structures to attract domestic pools of capital, domestic local pension funds, domestic savings, so that we can attract impact investment capital locally from those people who know the country the best and have the intention and commitment to drive positive impacts with their investment. And I think this is something which is increasingly important in many countries to offset the challenges of point two. So we are putting a lot of work and effort all around the world into mechanisms and vehicles to attract domestic pools of capital. For example, right now in Africa, in Nigeria and Ghana, we're working with the national partners in Nigeria and Ghana on vehicles designed to raise capital from domestic investors and from domestic pension funds. All of this, those three items, the number one, positive impact investment growth, two, emerging market challenges, three, domestic pools of capital, all of these require an impact investing ecosystem in your country. And we're so excited with what you are achieving with EYDK and the work you are putting into working with government policy, with demand for capital, supply of capital, to build up the impact ecosystem. It's fundamentally important underpinning for everything that we're talking about.
Thank you, Alasdair. Actually, based on what you have just said, I would like to reiterate here that impact capital mobilization is one of our verticals that we have been working, and it's going to be one of our priority for the next 3 years' time. So the second question is what global trends and innovations in impact investing do you think have the potential to reshape the industry in the coming years?
Thank you. It's a great question. And of course, every trend has to be local as well as global. But maybe I'll highlight again three particular trends that we are seeing. And it'd be interesting if you recognize these trends in your own markets in Turkey and in your other countries around. So the first trend, which personally I find the most exciting and which is really happening, is increased, improved, inclusive, with integrity, impact transparency. Turkey, I think, is probably a leader in this space because you are adopting the ISSB methodology in your country. But this is a global trend, and it is really, really important. And there are many organizations pushing forward this agenda for more impact transparency. We believe, and I'm sure you believe, that if investors and asset owners have access to decision useful information, have access to this level of impact information, then they will decide to allocate their capital more towards positive impact organizations. And we hope that companies also will make decisions around their allocation of resource to drive them towards more impact positive activity. So for us, this is really a very, very important global trend. There are lots of innovations in impact transparency. And maybe one of the most interesting innovations is impact valuation, which our sister organization, the International Foundation for Valuing Impacts, IFVI.org, they are really pioneering this concept of monetized impact to turn all that transparent impact data into dollar monetized values so you can compare and make trade-offs against different impact metrics. So impact transparency is, for us, the most exciting. And I'm going to try, if I may, I'm going to try and share, if it's possible, someone can turn on the sharing for me later. I will share some information around that level of impact transparency and impact valuation, which we're finding very interesting. I'll come to it later. The second point of global trends, which we think is hugely exciting, is around the impact-linked pricing of financial instruments. So our president, Sir Ronnie Cohen, who is always very humble and modest, explains that he did not invent this idea, but we think maybe he did. So with the original development impact bonds, social impact bonds, with the idea of paying for outcomes, we've seen a huge progress recently in the pricing of sustainability-linked bonds, sustainability-linked loans, where conventional investors and issuers of debt are building in a price mechanism that changes in line with the impacts created. So this impact-linked pricing of bonds and loans, I think, is hugely exciting for impact generally, because finally we're seeing a company that borrows money and then achieves good impact outcomes with that money is able to reduce the cost of that capital. The pricing of impact is included in the pricing of the bond or loan, and the cost of the financial capital comes down. So for us, that is very exciting. We've seen, I think, nearly $500 billion of such sustainability-linked loans and bonds issued amidst a much bigger social and green bond market that we've seen. I'm going to share just now, if I may, to my first point, some very interesting data which we saw last week at an event that we attended and hosted at New York in Climate Week. And this is some research from RGS, which is a company using impact valuation. And what they've shown is if they take a sample, build a portfolio of companies that have strong impact performance, strong impact monetized performance, and they've done the data by going through the analysis over the last 10 years, then the blue line from that impact leaders portfolio is outperforming the regular market, which is a MSCI iShares index. So this concept that companies that are driving positive impact, companies that are leaders in impact, using the methodology developed by IFVI, using impact transparency, those companies are outperforming the rest of the market, which is a hugely positive advance, because we're able now finally to say to investors, look, invest behind impact leaders, because those impact leaders will likely outperform the regular market. And this has been a very, very significant moment for impact transparency. So the third point I'll make is a trend which I'd like to learn in each country how active you think it is. I'm seeing in the UK increasing action in this area is a retail demand. So consumers, retail financial product consumers are demanding just transition portfolios. They're demanding impact-led portfolios. So this is not a focus of GSG Impact's work to drive consumer demand, but the consumers, the people investing in pensions, and the people committing their capital to savings, they are demanding increasingly impact positive products. And we see this also as pushing the asset managers to build more of those products. So number one, transparency, really advancing, particularly around valuation, like the slide I just showed. Number two, this impact-linked pricing of tools. And three, retail, consumer demand. These are three trends we're seeing and celebrating all of them.
Thank you, Alasdair. Actually, I would like to thank for the concrete example that you provided here. And actually, I would like to ask the audience that, if they have any comments about the global trends that Alasdair mentioned. Do you think that this is also something applicable in Turkey? Do we have this trend here as well? Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Alasdair. Well, I would like to share with you and the audience here that SLB bonds is in the regulatory preparation phase in Turkey. The securities market regulator has announced a draft for SLB bonds in line with the ICMA standards. This means the market will be in a regulated, transparent manner, will be on its way to develop. That is an important milestone issue I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you Seçil Hanım. Şafak Hanım.
Alasdair, hi. Great to see you and thank you for joining us today. It's about your third point, the change in the consumer behavior. And you're saying that it's happening in the retail market. What we see in Turkey, yes, it's happening here as well. It has just started, but not only there, maybe in initiatives, startups level as well. And I think this is happening because of the Gen Z effect as well, because money is changing hands and the new generation has got the DNA, has got impact under their skin now, and they're changing us, which is good news. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Şafak Hanım. Is there anybody else who would like to comment? No. Okay. Thank you, Alasdair. So the next question. What strategies do you believe are most effective in engaging traditional investors and encouraging them to incorporate impact criteria in their investment decisions?
Thank you, Tuğçe, and thank you, Shafak and colleagues, for those comments, and I agree with them. Very exciting to hear about the SLB regulation in Turkey, so that's very positive. So, Tuğçe, thank you. How to engage with investors. So this is where I'm sometimes less positive. I was in a meeting just yesterday with some asset owners, and we were asking them how many of them really have good quality impact strategies, just transition strategies. And we were looking at the data as to what they've signed up to and declared on the global markets. And the honest truth is still most big pension funds, most big insurance companies and sovereign wealth funds, they do not put impact at the heart of every investment decision. This is the truth, and this is disappointing still. They talk about impact strategies, and that normally means a particular percentage of their portfolio maybe is allocated to impact strategies. And then the rest of the portfolio is still stuck in the old paradigm of simple financial risk and return and little measurement or care for the consequences of that investment. So how do we engage with investors? I think there are two strategies to engaging with investors. One is to celebrate and encourage even a small percentage of their allocations to go towards impact. So to really be positive and share case studies, share stories, share examples, and encourage even if a small proportion of their capital to go towards impact. And explain that this impact risk return will be a positive outcome for them. But don't punish them for not being perfect, but to celebrate and work with and reinforce and be positive. And then I think that the second strategy, though, is really we have to provide more data to investors as to what the true returns are of impact-focused strategies. And the data I shared earlier is beginning to show some more positive stories as to how we can maximize financial risk and return through positive impact behaviors. And we need to persuade these investors. We have to engage with them on the financial metrics. We can't just tell good stories and celebrate and be positive around the impact stories behind the investment. We have to be able to tell a convincing financial risk return story. And I feel sometimes that we as a collective movement, we don't tell that story convincingly enough. And it's hard because there's lots of data, but I think we need to work together to try and build up a more positive financial reward story, because still that is what drives investors in decision-making, allocations of their capital. The other last thought on this is to focus on those investors who are ready to listen. And what we see is the family offices, which is piece by piece quite small, but in aggregate a significant proportion of the asset owner market. The family offices are more interested in learning and exploring innovative strategies. They tend to have more flexibility in their mandates. And so maybe work with those people who are most receptive. Sometimes we say in English, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I think there's a sense you have to have an investor base that is interested in learning and growing impact.
Thank you very much, Alasdair. We have one more question from Şafak Hanım.
Actually, it's not a question, but rather a comment. When it comes to engage the investors, I think the psychology of the investor matters as well. You know, you fear from what you don't know, and in that sense, I believe creating a common understanding and providing enough information. Actually, I'm talking about impact literacy, to bring us all together to the same level of understanding. Speaking the same language for impact matters a lot, and for this reason, EYDK has started last year, it's been a year, the impact literacy program through the SDG impact standards, and we made it a prerequisite to become a member to EYDK. And it's making waves. Just wanted to mark this in this conversation. Thank you so much, Alasdair.
That's very positive and exciting. I love that phrase, Shafak. The impact literacy is a really important concept. I agree with you entirely. And I'm sure all of you in the room are very literate on impact already, but think of the hundreds of thousands of other people in finance who are not. So I think it's a very important piece of work. Agree.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Shafak Hanım, for your comments. Actually, we have a couple of minutes left, so that's why I'm going to combine two questions for you. Then we are going to have our lunch break. Lastly, I would like to ask you the strategic priorities for GSG Impact over the next few years, especially in terms of achieving the SDGs. And also, we would like to hear from you that what new areas or sectors do you see as ripe for impact investment, especially considering the recent shifts in global priorities such as climate resilience and digital transformation, which are the subjects that we have been actually discussing from the beginning.
And you're probably all wanting your lunch in just
no, actually, we love to hear you more. So just, in order to keep the time, that's why I just made it, a small reminder that we have a couple of minutes for you to respond to questions.
Sure, Tuğçe, sure. But wave at me if everyone decides it's nearly lunchtime and it's time for a break. Let me share one more slide just to put some words in front of you. I will do that now.
Sure.
So what is our strategy at GSG Impact? So a strategy, of course, has to sit underneath a vision. So our vision at GSG Impact is that impact is at the heart of every investment, business, government spending decision. For us, that is so important that impact is at the heart of those decisions. And so our mission is around accelerating impact transparency and a transformative shift of money and resources for the SDGs and climate goals. And so what are we going to do about that? Well, we have three main objectives within our work. The first is that GSG Impact Partnership, our extraordinary collection of members across 45 countries, representing more than half the world's people, that is a highly effective enabling partnership that works together, collaborates well, shares information, shares best practice. The second objective is our strategic objective is to really do what we can to advance inclusion and integrity in impact transparency, particularly to make sure that emerging markets and SMEs are included in the emerging impact transparency, sustainability disclosure rules and standards. And you have contributed through EYDK and others to that process with workshops, capacity building, and engagement. So that is incredibly important to us, that the new impact transparency standards have integrity and are inclusive. The third strategy, and the first two lead towards this, is to scale resources mobilization. And there are so many different ways that we could work on scaling resource mobilization. Our big idea is that transparency alone will lead to resource mobilization. But smaller initiatives and ideas, particularly around mobilizing capital for SME finance, for that middle sector of business that isn't able to attract capital as much as we would like it to. So small, medium-sized enterprise finance, working with development banks. We're spending a lot of time working with international agencies, development banks, and private investors to try to drive more capital. Sometimes when you think about the sort of capital that's needed I sometimes think this is the amount of money that governments have, this small amount of money to try and drive change. And then as well, you can add in some more money here from philanthropy, development agencies, catalytic capital. But clearly it's still not very much money. And you need to be able to add in that big blue ball maybe of real private sector money to add in more capital. And when we think about what we're trying to achieve strategically, so much of our work is geared around bringing in private capital into the solutions. So those are our sort of strategic priorities over the coming months. In terms of the new areas and new excitements, maybe I'll just share a slide which shows some of the activities going on around the world in our different countries. I could talk about sectors and themes, like I could talk, for example, about nature and biodiversity investing. I could talk about education technology, impact investment for informal settlements and housing, climate adaptation investment strategies. And those are all incredibly important and relevant. But as I think about these examples in different countries, there are a number of sort of innovations, initiatives where we're seeing real progress in countries. So we're seeing progress on outcomes funds, wholesaler funds in different countries around the world where capital is being harnessed for impact. We're seeing great progress on deal platforms and market linkages in a number of countries. And of course, we talked already in Turkey and other countries, we're seeing ISSB sustainability standards being adopted. So lots of very positive trends, happenings around the world. I've just come back from Climate Week in New York, and you can't get away from the fact that the world's investors are all looking for climate finance solutions. So my takeaway message may be, however we present opportunity and stories, we must include climate. It's a fundamentally important issue, but also it will attract the attention of investors globally and attract the attention of philanthropy globally. So often, if you're thinking of a just transition strategy or an adaptation strategy for SMEs whose environment is being changed, climate is the #1 trend and the #1 initiative still. But so much else belongs within climate. So the social and climate interaction, the just transition is fundamentally important and is still probably the biggest impact issue and initiative out there is the just transition.
Thank you very much, Alasdair, for all your contribution and insights. And I would like to return to the audience that if they have any questions. Okay, I don't see any. Thank you very much, Alasdair. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate the invitation, and I hope you have a very successful rest of your day together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.